Ladies and gentlemen, today we have a privilege to introduce Stephen Poo, a luminary in the realm of blockchain innovation. As the co-founder of Taraxa, he is pioneering groundbreaking advancements in blockchain technology. Through Taraxa's EVM-compatible smart contract platform and the revolutionary T-graph consensus protocol, Stephen is spearheading a movement towards faster, more cost-effective, and environmentally sustainable blockchain solutions. Join us as we explore the journey and vision of this extraordinary individual shaping the future of decentralized technology. Welcome to our Crypto Talk show, Stephen. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, and thank you guys very much for inviting me to Crypto Talk. You guys have been covering a lot of Taraxa's content and spreading the word about our project. So thank you very much for that.
It's a total pleasure to have you with us today, Stephen. So we'll now kick off with the questions, I guess. And so my first question to you is the one which you have probably gotten bored of answering multiple times over and over again. What's your story behind, as a founder, and how did you get into the blockchain, and how did Taraxa come about?
Yeah, sure. This everyone's favorite question. I got into blockchain actually a little bit later, right? Than maybe some of the earliest people. So I heard about Bitcoin back in 2013 and heard about Ethereum back in 2014, actually. So at that time, I didn't quite get it. I spent a lot of time thinking about it and reading about it, but didn't quite understand what was so special about blockchain. I think what really got me started to understand the power of decentralization was actually changing my career. I was doing a lot of startups, and then later on I was doing management consulting, strategy consulting for extremely large companies who wanted to know how they can innovate and move very quickly like startups. So after I did a few years of consulting for these, Fortune 100 companies, global companies, I started realizing that human organizations didn't scale very well, right? There was a lot of friction in the way that we worked together, we coordinated with one another. And at that time, after, having spent years already thinking about blockchain and decentralization, I realized that decentralization was actually a way to introduce a lot more automation into everything, right? Into business processes, into organizational processes. So it actually allowed us to scale. It can actually allow us to scale much, much faster. I mean, so much of what's in organizations, whether they're businesses or commercial organizations or government or whatever, or any kind of organization, there's just tons of friction, right, that are actually caused by the fact that people don't really trust each other, or that, someone needs to come in and actually guarantee the fact that, no one's going to screw each other over. So there's a lot of effort and resources being placed in introducing a lot of friction. So I know it's not the common story of how people got into blockchain, but that's how I got into blockchain, right? That's how I got into decentralization. I recognize this is really kind of a once in a century technology. And there was nothing in the world like it. I mean, most technologies in human civilization have been to make things go faster, right? This can be faster, bigger, better, cheaper. But there hasn't really been something that specifically targeted trust. So this is very, very unique. So that finally got excited and got me started getting into the technology back in 2017. And so how did Taraxa, start out was, after I recognized the potential of this technology, I started thinking about, so what should we be building, right? And it was very interesting is that we got into the layer one space because for several reasons. I think the first reason was that in 2017, especially in 2018, the entire world basically recognized that the infrastructural technologies needed to be improved because the technology at the time was not really ready for prime time. Too slow, too expensive, too easily congested. It wasn't really ready to handle world scale applications. So we said in order to really in order to really get into the space and have the flexibility to build the types of application we wanted, we needed to get into the infrastructure technology, which, brought us about actually getting into building Taraxa. But I think one of the things that really perhaps differentiate us from a lot of other layer one teams is that we actually really wanted to make sure that our technology was used for something useful. It was solving problems that we saw in the real world. So throughout our tenure as builders of this infrastructure network, we always try to build applications on top of the network, right? We wanted this to be kind of a purpose-built ecosystem instead of a generic layer one infrastructure. So that was that's the reason why we kept building different types of applications, and that's why we're very focused on our decentralized infrastructure for AI agents, Echo, which is coming out soon as well. So it's kind of a long-winded explanation of how we got into the space, but we're very excited about all the things that we're building. And I think the entire space is maturing in a way that we can see this, decentralization technologies and its ideals, right? Really kind of percolating into the real world. And then, we're seeing potentials for a lot of, very, very impactful outcomes in the near future. So we're very excited about what's happening in the space and very excited about what's happening within the Taraxa ecosystem as well.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure knowing how you got into blockchain. I was also researching a bit about you, and I got to know that you heard about blockchain from your friend Bobby Lee. I guess he was in Stanford with you, right? So
Yeah. There was a group of us actually in Shanghai, and I think at the time I was the vice president of the alumni association, Stanford Alumni Association in Shanghai. So we had lots of activities planned, monthly activities, weekly activities. And one day, Bobby showed up, I want to tell you guys about Bitcoin. So yeah, I think he spent a few hours giving us a talk about what Bitcoin is. This is back in 2013, maybe in February or something like that, March, I'm not really sure. And I guess after that talk, I thought about it for a very long time and, didn't quite get it. It was magic internet money. What is this, right? It's a strange thing. And he went on to build the first large scale exchange in China. And there were a lot of Stanford classmates of mine that actually got into blockchain technology from different angles. I mean, Bobby had always been very interested in exchanges and wallets. There was another classmate of mine that actually started building also building exchanges in Taiwan.
Alex.
Alex. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and then a third person who used to be a trader in Hong Kong. So he was much more interested in the trading side of things, the financial side of things. So so there were a lot of people that kind of along the way kept telling me about this technology and kept telling me about its potential. So, and they're all very smart people. So I took it very seriously and kept thinking about it. I think I'm very appreciative that I was surrounded by people who had perhaps much better and longer term vision than I did, that kept kind of poking me, hey, you should check it out. So it's very fortunate to have friends like that.
Absolutely. It's always good to be around great minds. So yeah, that was amazing. So Sahil, you can go ahead with the second one.
Yeah, sure. So Steven, as you mentioned, layer one solutions that we already had in the space when you started Taraxa, right? So quote unquote, Ethereum is the leader there, right? We still have those problems, right? We still have the problems of scalability not so much, but expensive transactions is what is being a bottleneck still to this date. So how does Taraxa go about solving this blockchain trilemma, so to say, right? If you were to explain it to someone with very basic knowledge of layer ones and very basic knowledge of blockchain, what differentiates your solutions in the technological terms that you're solving this problem?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think very early on, right? This is actually really early on. Vitalik talked about the trilemma that's involved in blockchain design. So this is a very basic concept in all of engineering. Like every single area of engineering, basically the entire world has this is constrained by trade-offs, right? So you can't get anything in the world for free. You get something, you have to give up something else. That's just the way the world works. So what Vitalik was talking about was basically, if you really want something to go really fast, you have to start giving up either decentralization or giving up security. You got to give up something in order to get something else. So, okay, so that makes sense. But the thing about trade-offs and thing about these trade-offs is that they're all very much tied to a specific system, right? So they're tied to the Ethereum system that they have these very strict trade-offs. Now, every system isn't having trade-offs. It's just a matter of degree, right? How much trade-off you have. So a non-technical way to think about it is sort of like, you have a pie, right? Like, you're splitting this pie into several pieces, like one piece to give to, throughput, one piece to give to decentralization, one piece to give to security. And then that's it, you got no pie, right? And you're like, well, I want more to go to decentralization. I want more to go to throughput. I want it faster. Well, then you got to cut the pie that you gave to decentralizing security and give it to, throughput. So you have the pie, the size of the pie is limited. The non-technical sort of description of how Taraxa with, its BlockDAG consensus really solves this problem is that we actually just made the pie bigger, right? So that's really all it is, right? So if you're working with the Ethereum pie, that's it. Ethereum is as good as you can get it. It's not going to get any faster or better or whatever without actually sacrificing something else. But if you increase the size of the pie, then you can start doing a lot more interesting things without sacrificing the same security and decentralization guarantees. And that's really what Taraxa is doing here. So if you imagine a network, right? If you imagine like sort of the Ethereum network, this is more technical. Let's go one layer deeper, right? Have a slightly more technical description. If you just say, why do we have these trade-offs? Why is this so hard to, kind of increase the pie or whatever? So if you have Ethereum and then you have this single chain network, right? And every single time you have one block, right? Any given time on a network, you have one block that's coming up. So how do you make it go faster, right? So one idea is, well, why don't we just make more blocks, right? Just have a lot more blocks. Well, it's a single chain, right? So every single time there can only be one block attached to it. And on Ethereum, any single chain kind of network, Bitcoin, there are lots of other single chain networks out there. All the blocks that are not selected to be on the single blockchain get wasted, just thrown away. So you can't, making more blocks doesn't really help you. All you're doing is you're introducing a lot more waste, and you're actually sacrificing security because now nodes get confused about which block they should be building on top of, right? So you're actually sacrificing system resources as well as security. Then you're saying, okay, fine, so more blocks, that's a bad idea. Well, let's make the blocks really big. How about that? Let's only have one block, right? Let's make them huge. And so it has more transactions, so everything's faster. Well, not really, because if you have huge blocks, they travel through the network really slowly, right? And what happens if it travels through a network really slowly is that if you and I are two different nodes, the chances of you seeing the same set of blocks as I do as they're propagating, flying through the network, the chances of that goes down, right? Because now the blocks move really slowly. And if the block came from one guy, you're a little bit closer to that guy, you see a lot earlier than I do, and you get lots of problems. Then you get the same sacrifice for security because now you and I are probably building on different blocks. So now the network is forking and getting into all kinds of problems. Again, single chain. We have single chain. Well, okay, so bigger blocks, bad idea. More blocks, bad idea. Okay, so what else can we do? Well, why don't we just put all the servers, all the nodes together in the same room, right? Like, let's put them all in the same room on some specialized network. And that's, instead of having hundreds of nodes, let's just have like 21 nodes or like 15 nodes or something. Okay, yeah, that does make it way faster. That's true, right? But then you're sacrificing decentralization, right? You have less nodes on the network, and they're all kind of being controlled by the same entity, or they're all relying upon the same network. So no matter what you do, you're kind of getting to these problems. So the single chain is really the problem here, right? Having a single chain is really the problem. And what BlockDAG does is saying like, well, you don't have to have that problem, right? Why have a single chain? Why not have multiple chains that are connected to each other like a graph, right? So this way you don't have a lot of waste because you're not throwing all these blocks away from, different people. And then you can actually have a lot more throughput without really sacrificing security or decentralization. So it sounds really simple. It's not that simple, but it but it's like it's really sort of like, let's make the size of the pipe bigger. Let's just make the pipe bigger so that we can have more resources to be dedicated to these different features that we would like to have without sacrificing other features, right? That's really all it is. If you take just like the single chain Bitcoin Ethereum network, you're not going to make any improvements. That's it. You're stuck with a trilemma, and that's as good as it's going to get. There are hundreds of really talented developers working on these networks that they're not going to make it any faster, right? No one can. So you have to just change the way the network actually operates. Yeah. So that's really, I think, a non-technical version of it. There are a lot of so-called high throughput networks out there, and a lot of them actually make these sacrifices. I think most people in crypto today don't necessarily care as much about decentralization as they did before, or security as they did before. So I think this is a good reminder to everyone in the space that first of all, decentralization matters, because if you're not working on a decentralized network, why even be in crypto at all, right? I mean, you just go on Amazon, work on some centralized cloud, that's fine. The other one is security, right? You have to be careful about people making outlandish claims. All these bridges get hacked because they're not bridges at all. They're not decentralized. They're not secure. They're just a single wallet somebody has in their hand, and he's just like manually bridging things across different chains. So you sacrifice these decentralization and security factors at your own peril, right? So this is why Taraxa is very dedicated to increasing throughput, maximizing throughput, but never sacrificing decentralization or security guarantees. Because again, what's the point otherwise, right? So I think this is a very interesting thing that probably most people don't realize in the crypto space, is that you can increase the size of the pie through great technology. And that's exactly what Taraxa has been doing. So.
Now, that's a great explanation. The analogy with the pie was a really good one for non-tech people to understand. And I think this, again, the last thing that you mentioned, people are so much invested in terms of thinking of blockchains as an investment rather than a piece of technology with end user applications, that people often forget the importance of decentralization in this space, right? They're quick to blame technologies. Again, Ethereum has been the leader of the pack, right? We can't just blame it for the flaws that it does have. But again, it is trying to do the right thing, and decentralization, I think, should be at the helm of this blockchain dilemma. Anyhow, it doesn't matter what technology. But yeah, I think this was a very good explanation for everyone involved, right? Tarish?
Absolutely. Like I feel like after the initial ERC20 boom, back in 2017, 2018, when Ethereum was, struck by the CryptoKitties thing, and like it had to go through a hard fork, and that was the time, I guess, most of the layer ones were getting into the market. And I feel Steven would agree with me, like most of the major layer ones we have as of now were introduced back in 2017, 2018. And also, like the way Steven mentioned, like trilemma is obviously the trade-off that any system will face, and for that, like you mentioned, like multi-chains, BlockDAGs and all. So BlockDAG has also been a buzzword for the past couple of years in Web3, I feel. And I think it would be fair enough to say, like, there's been Caspa, there's been Taraxa, like they have been the flag bearers for the BlockDAG technology. But I just wanted to ask you, like, how would you tell to the audience, like, how does the Taraxa project differs from Caspa? Like, personally, we know that, like, you guys are proof of stake and they are proof of work. But how does that, change the fact that what different features do Taraxa has over Caspa or any other layer one blockchain for that matter?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first of all, I want to make sure that, several points. First of all, I think BlockDAG is more than just a buzzword, right? It's a fundamental upgrade to blockchain, right? So I think in my previous explanation, the idea was sort of a oversimplified analogy is that you can think of BlockDAG as many chains connected together. So naturally, it has a throughput improvement if you think about it in that simplistic analogy. The second thing I want to talk about is that the founders of Kaspa, Sompolinsky, Wyborski, right? These are the people that actually invented BlockDAG, right? So they've had a long history of publishing really research that was far ahead of the time. Sompolinsky specifically, I think, have been publishing very seminal papers like once every 2-3 years, I think, ever since blockchain came out. And it culminated, at least in 2018, I think, in this paper called Phantom Ghost dApp, which is the paper that I read that inspired me to adopt the BlockDAG technology. So while we obviously they wrote the paper, we read the paper, and we both went off and to implement the technology. The way I think about Kaspa and kind of Taraxa is that Kaspa is kind of like, the Bitcoin of the BlockDAG world, and Taraxa is kind of like the Ethereum of the BlockDAG world. I think the reason why I say that is because, and I'm hoping I'm not misquoting, right? So when we saw the paper and we wanted to build something, we were very application focused. So we were always thinking about creating a decentralized network and a platform to actually run applications, right? To realize a lot of the visions that we have in leveraging decentralization to solve real world problems. So from day one, we were thinking about how you can, natively integrate the EVM or some kind of VM on top of this high throughput network. And we wanted to be very flexible in terms of running applications, very low cost. So that was the way that we were going through it. We were very application focused. I think, hopefully I'm not misquoting. I think Kaspa is more about, I think, as a currency, right? I think the way that Kaspa has thought of itself, and as in their papers, in their technology, is really sort of more positioned as a currency. And so that kind of fits the BTC ETH paradigm. So that's the way I think about it. Now, any technology can change, can morph, and people can build on top of it. I think there are people who want to build like a layer 2 or off-chain execution layer on Kaspa. That's great, right? I mean, just like there are off-chain execution layers on Bitcoin. But I think from the start, the initial kind of intent in building these two different networks, I think we had different goals in mind. So the ways that I think Taraxa are different, than Kaspa is, of course, first of all, we have a native EVM integration. And this is actually really important because a lot of layer ones out there actually don't have native EVM integration. They have what I call hacked down EVM integration, right? Like they would build their own execution layer that's highly simplified, but very optimized to their own network. But later on, they got forced into adopting EVM because the developer community, everyone builds on Ethereum, everyone knows the tool chains and the language, Solidity. And so they, kind of hacked it out into their network. And a hacked down version of EVM onto a high throughput network means that the EVM operates just as slowly as it does on Ethereum. We would know because we spent a long time trying to integrate it. And we can make heavy modifications to the execution layer of the EVM in order to make sure that it is actually able to catch up and not become a bottleneck for the entire network. So this is very important. We have true finality, which means that there's an asynchronous operation alongside the BlockDAG to actually finalize, which means to say that this section or these transactions are final. So there's no probabilistic finality, which is sort of like you got to wait X number of blocks or X number of levels to probably to be kind of certain that there's not going to be a network reorganization. So we don't have that. We have basically it's finalized and it's done. The finalization speed is under 3.7 seconds. It could get it will get a lot faster in the near future. We have variable block rates, right? So actually our network adjusts the block production rate for the DAG blocks in the BlockDAG architecture, according to what we see, how much traffic we see on the network. So again, we're trying to be very efficient and not introduce a lot of waste. So we're figuring if there's not a lot of traffic on the network, people don't need to be building a lot of blocks, right? Why be wasteful? But if there are a lot of traffic on the network, then more people can start contributing blocks. So this is just something that we always had in our mind, that we want to minimize the amount of waste that's actually in decentralized networks. And of course, we went with proof of stake just because we wanted something that's really light, kind of a lighter network, and we wanted to make sure that there wasn't any kind of arms race in hardware that people deploy on the network, right? So these are some of the things that I think are a little bit different for Taraxa versus Caspa. But again, Caspa, there are people, give credit where credit's due. They're the crypto OGs. They invented this technology. Obviously, they're amazing people, great tech. I think we're just going after different things when we build these different networks.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Most of the apps out there are written to be EVM, and like Taraxa solves that problem, And apart from that, you mentioned the block rates, like they're dynamic. They change with respect to the traffic on the platform. And just another question I had was like, how does being proof of stake be a good thing for decentralization? Does it help the trilemma, or does it reduces the fact that the decentralization is a bit on the lesser side if it's proof of stake?
Yeah, I hear this quite a bit. I'm not really sure why people think proof of stake is less decentralized than proof of work. It's a little. I mean, so in proof of work, you buy hardware, right? I mean, when we talk about proof of stake versus proof of work, we're really talking about how does the network guard against Sybil attacks, right? So how can you actually prevent people from pretending to be somebody else, or actually raising the costs to attack the network, right? Just the economic security guarantee. So in proof of work, they use mining machines, right? And in proof of stake, they use coins, locked into a contract of some sort. And both are economic guarantees. It's just that one comes in the form of hardware and the other one comes in the form of coins. Doesn't really seem to be that big of a difference between the two in terms of decentralization. I mean, if you look at Bitcoin, I think unfortunately Bitcoin is very centralized these days, right? It's proof of work, but there are these massive mining pools that people actually collaborate off chain to do this kind of stuff. And proof of stake can be centralized or decentralized too, depending on what people do. So this idea of how centralized or decentralized something is, it's very difficult to guarantee that using technology. Because it depends on what humans do with it, right? Doesn't matter what system you have. Like that in the extreme case, one person can go out and just buy up everything. They can go buy up all the mining machines, right? Or they can buy up 99% of the mining machines. So yes, you're free to buy another mining machine, but good luck getting blocks, right? The same thing with proof of stake. You can go out and buy all the points, and so again, so it cuts you out. So it's an economic guarantee that really is heavily dependent upon human behavior. Humans are free to do whatever it is they want to do. That can make any network centralized or decentralized, either way, right? So I'm not sure from a technology level, one is natively more or less decentralized than the other one. It just depends on what people choose to do, right? That's really as far as I can take it. I mean, I think it's kind of strange that people. I mean, I think it's a little strange that there would be this kind of narrative, I think, in the crypto community, but it just depends on what people do. It's a human problem. It's not a technology problem, really.
Thanks for giving your opinion on that. That was much needed because a lot of people have that doubt in their minds, right? I guess we can move ahead with the next question, Sahil.
Yeah, definitely. So my question for you, Steven, is So I see Taraxa, and I've gone through your website, and I see you portraying or modeling yourself as a layer one, but with equal importance to an ecosystem of applications as well, right? So what I'd like to know is right now, what Taraxa is offering, let's say, developers and creators, builders, and what is Taraxa offering end users, right? Because right now, if you give some insight on what is being offered to these folks, it would be great for our viewers.
Yeah, sure. So Taraxa is, it's a layer one ecosystem, right? So, I think layer one is usually, it's infrastructure technology. Its own, it's not really useful for anything. People need to build tech applications on top of it. And for us as a team who founded this project, we've always been very interested, not just in building the layer one, but also building application specific infrastructure to kind of make sure that the ecosystem has a purpose. It serves a purpose. It solves some problems, right? So right now, what we're really trying to, we're really trying to, I guess, illustrate, or we're trying to, we're trying to exemplify is that you can actually build a very rich AI ecosystem on top of Taraxa. Taraxa, again, it's a layer one it's a layer one network, but we're very focused on, bringing a lot more AI applications. And that's because we started building this application network. It's a decentralized platform, right? It's kind of decentralized infrastructure for AI. We started building this back in 2021 because we saw there were a lot of problems that we're seeing in, that could be solved with social data, right? So there are things like, how do you automate trend discovery? How do you automate community management? How do you automate bounties? How do you automate word of mouth, right? So there are a lot of these things that are, I think, very critical and very central to crypto, how crypto communities are built, how people in crypto trade, a lot of things like that, that all very much are based on social data. So we built this Echo network on top of Taraxa that has access to over 20,000 public Telegram groups talking about crypto in English, ingest 500,000 to 1 million messages every single day. It has a lot of built-in AI models that are fine-tuned to this data set that actually allows you to filter out spam and spammers, conducts topic modeling, figure out what people are talking about, relevancy, like are they talking about something that's close to what you want to know about? And it also has context-aware sentiment models, right? Like, is this, sentiment is always context related. So this platform, I think, is very, very interesting to people who are interested in AI, for people who are interested in social data. And we've already had a few projects built on top of it, and there are more in the pipeline, right? So there's one called TrendSpotter, and what they do is that they identify trends within the crypto communities before they become trending, right? So by the time you see it on Twitter, it's too late. It's already too late. This is what a lot of traders and investors have been telling us for years, is that it's incredibly difficult for them to identify trends early, right? So TrendSpotter solves that problem. We developed this application on Hype, which is automated. It was an automated bounty, right? So you can actually set a bounty and incentivize people to go out and just talk about whatever related to the bounty, like spread the word about, a testnet launch, or spread a word about, whatever you want about specific projects. And the system will automatically be able to know who's talking about what, where, and also very critically, are you a bot farmer? Are you a spammer? So those guys get pruned out automatically. There's another project that actually just came through our hackathon called Trixie, which is actually producing a constrained, smaller scale fine-tuned model based on the Telegram data that we have. And it's actually going to start creating things like chatbots that can tell you the latest information about a specific project. And it can do a lot of very interesting things. So we have a few more of these in the pipeline, and we're building partnerships with other AI ecosystems as well. So on this side, it's really for the application specific side of the Taraxa ecosystem. We've been, again, very interested as the founding team, as development team, to actually solve very specific problems with our layer one. So we're never really satisfied to just build a layer one. So that's specific towards AI, specific towards AI agents. Well, and for anyone who's interested in social data, using social data to build something interesting. This data set, and this, these fine-tuned models that actually analyze this data set, they don't really exist anywhere else. We looked really hard before we created this because we wanted to use it. It didn't exist, so we had to create it ourselves. So that's really the AI angle. And of course, Taraxa is also a general purpose layer one with EVM on top of BlockDAG. So you can deploy whatever you want, really. Anything that you can deploy on Ethereum, you can deploy on Taraxa. So a critical part of an ecosystem, a layer one ecosystem, and this wasn't even really in existence. I think just a few years ago is DeFi, right? So that's why we have a bridge, and we have a very long line of DeFi applications in the pipeline that are coming out that's going to take advantage of the bridge, right? So we have a lot to offer people who actually want to either issue assets, want to build DeFi, want to do all kinds of trading. So that's another strong value proposition to people that are interested in those types of applications. If you get down one layer deeper, Taraxa, to developers, we're very fast, we're very cheap, and we're EVM compatible, right? So everyone likes fast, right? High TPS, low latency, and instant transaction inclusion into blocks. Very cheap. We're orders of magnitude cheaper than every other layer one on the market today, layer one and layer two. Not even close. So you're never going to run out of money. You're never going to have to worry about your treasury getting drained by fees. That's not going to happen. Not even close. EVM compatible means, again, you don't need to buy anything new, right? Not only can you drag and drop applications that you build on Ethereum or other EVM compatible ecosystem directly onto Taraxa, and it would just work. There are also no new tools here. Whatever tools you were used to using on Ethereum, all these building frameworks like, Foundry, Hard Hat, tools like Remix. You can just use them directly without any modifications. So that's, again, developers are lazy, right? They want to learn new things. So this is a huge value proposition to them. And from a technical perspective, like I said, our nodes are very low cost. So anyone can run a node. I know that, a pain point for developers is that a lot of the nodes for these layer one networks require a huge amount of system resources. So just running a test node would actually, get you a huge cloud bill, right? That's not the case with Taraxa. You can run a node on your computer, and running in the background, you wouldn't even notice it. So we're very light. We wouldn't eat up your system. We're not going to give you a huge bill. So when it comes to end users, I think the benefits for developers would just kind of translate to end users. Again, very fast, very cheap, and it's truly decentralized and highly secure. So at the protocol level, you're not going to get into, funny business, right? As some of these other networks are prone to getting to. All applications would just run just better on top of Taraxa versus other ecosystems. So I think we have some very strong value propositions in terms of, application or ecosystem specific stuff like the AI Echo platform that we're building. We have a lot of native technical advantages that developers love. And of course, those advantages translate into, just faster, cheaper, and better applications for the end user. I think we have something to offer for everybody.
That's a great answer. I think I take away three main things from your answer here, Steven. The first one, again, this was one of our upcoming questions, which you've already answered about eco and trend spotter, right? So we're a media organization. We are big on trend, spotting trends, spotting new projects, spotting hype projects, And we personally were very invested and very hopeful on when TrendSpotter gets released, when Eco gets released. So that was our question that you already answered.
Yeah, I mean, I can put you with the founding team of TrendSpotter, and they can get you into their closed alpha right now. So, I mean, then just getting into a little bit more about how powerful this is, right? We were doing a lot of back testing last year, trying to make sure that our algorithms on TrendSpotter actually works. And one of the things that they found, which is fascinating, right? I mean, meme coins were huge, or they've been huge since the founding of crypto. And nothing impacts meme coins like social chatter, right? So when we did our back testing, we noticed that we were able to, in many cases, be a few days, or even actually in rare cases, weeks ahead of these meme coins going parabolic, right? In terms of their trading activities. So the example that really stuck in my head was Pepe, right? Pepe is like huge meme coin that seemed to come out of nowhere. And what's very interesting is that using TrendSpotter, we were actually able to identify Pepe 3 weeks prior to its parabolic rise, and actually 1 week before its smart contract was deployed. It's extremely fascinating, right? In some of these cases, you can actually find out about a project really early. And we were actually astounded by this finding. We thought there must have been some mistake. We kept checking it, and you can actually see that repeated in a lot of different projects. Now, obviously, being earlier in identifying trends means that there are more false positives, right? So it's not like everything you can get is going to be 100% right. And again, trade-offs in the world, right? You don't get perfect information. But the fact that you're able to get into or be able to identify some of these trends this early is it's astounding. Like I think all throughout last year, people were asking me, like, tell me about what's going on with TrendSpotter. And I say, well, let's look at the data some more, because it looks a little bit too good to be true. Or like it's just even right. So this is just one of the, I think, one of the examples, I think, that you can see that by having the right type of data, by having the right type of models, right, and analytics, you're actually able to automate trend discovery. And automation is really something. This is going back to some of the things I said before in our interview. Automation is something that we're very, very, very interested in doing, because that's the name of the game. How can you make things more efficient, right? That's what everyone is interested in. That's how human technologies work. So if you're able to do that very efficiently and with a lot of trust, right? So again, this is why decentralized networks are very important, because how are you supposed to trust a random signal coming from a centralized entity? If it's a decentralized network, it's a lot more trustworthy. So these things I think make very compelling use cases for the Echo platform and for social data in general. Yeah, when people such as yourselves are building online communities, must be very interesting. So yeah, definitely happy to make an intro.
Yeah, definitely, and I can't wait to grab it and use it. Right, then it's getting into something like Pepe 3 weeks before would do wonders for us. Or anyone for that matter.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, I mean, why not? Yeah, you can go on.
Yeah, another important thing that I got from your answer, Stephen, was the fact that the Taraxa is EVM compatible, and I myself have worked on Solidity before with Remix, with RDAT, and all these things, right? And every developer, in my opinion, the biggest problem for me as a developer was always running the node, right? With Ethereum, it is a huge headache. There's a lot of cost. There's a lot of pain. Pain is the only word which would properly describe it, right? So if if Taraxa is light, if it's faster, if it's more scalable, I don't see why not, right? The question is why not? And if developers are able to build quicker and build better on Taraxa, then obviously the end user will also get the benefits eventually. Because technology is for the end user at the end of the day. Layer ones are only layer ones because we get to build applications on that. So I think these are 2 or 3 of key takeaways that viewers must understand from your answer.
Yeah. Well said. Thank you.
Ganesh, would you like to continue next?
Yeah, sure. Steven, I was going through your X account and I saw April and May have been months with the Taraxa Tinkerfest going on as well. Would you like to tell our audience something more about it? Like, what is it? What is the Tinkerfest? And
Yeah. So the Tinkerfest is the first global hackathon hosted by Taraxa, and I think we've gotten pretty good outcomes, right? So the last time I checked, maybe my data is not the most up to date, but we've had close to 100 people, hackers registering into our hackathon. We've had 30 or more than 30 projects submitted, and with 19, 20 of them passed review. There are a few projects in AI, a lot of them are in gaming, and a few of them are in DeFi. So I think each of the projects really come in, really kind of, they all have kind of different angles, I would say, from an ecosystem perspective, right? So some of them were extremely technically strong, like they're just really impressive technologies. I think others really kind of fill gaps in our ecosystem, right? So we're interested in beefing up the DeFi stack. So there are DeFi projects that we're very interested in. We're interested in getting more transparency into the ecosystem of applications. So there are things like people are building things like launchpads and ecosystem sites and things like that. So we got a really good mix, and I think again, the hackathon is just a small part of our overall outreach to developers. So regardless of whether or not someone won in the hackathon, we're going to reach out to every single one of them and encourage them to also apply to the Taraxa grant program. So Taraxa has a $10 million grant program that was approved by Governance Bill earlier this year. So please, if you're a developer, you're interested in trying out something that's compatible with Ethereum, but just much faster and cheaper and easier to use, come and check us out, taraxa.io/grant. So that's taraxa.io/grant. Come and check us out, apply for a grant, and we'd love to have you in our ecosystem.
yeah, we'll absolutely also put in the links in the description for them to easily access them. So yeah, that's a great initiative, Stephen, I must say. And yeah, I guess we're more or less done. We have just one last question for you. I guess, Sahil, you can take that up if you want to.
Yeah, sure. Ganesh, thank you.
Yeah.
So, Stephen, one last question for you as Ganesh mentioned. So, you've been building on Taraxa for what, close to 6 years now, right?
Yeah.
So, what are your experiences so far? How many times have you had to change things? How many times have you had to pivot? Because again, blockchain, crypto, technology in general changes so fast. I'm sure you must have had to change your ways over this period of 6 years. So, first part is this, and the second part is what is next for Taraxa now? Maybe 24, 25. What's the roadmap ahead?
Yeah. I think that's good. So, I mean, to understand, some of the pivots that we've done, I think it's because the crypto industry evolves so quickly, right? It actually moves forward very, very quickly. So, I think besides the technological advancements, which I think is very obvious, right? On layer ones, layer twos, zero knowledge, the way that people guarantee security through audits, the auditing tools, there's so much innovation that's gone on in the previous 6 years. So that's pretty obvious, but I think more obvious, more impactful, I think, to the way that we have thought about how we develop our applications specifically, is really, I think, the maturation of use cases that's happening within the crypto ecosystem at large. So when we started building 2017, 2018, it wasn't really clear what crypto was going to be used for, right? I think people said it was going to be used for currency or something else. It wasn't very clear. And after all these years, I think I really see kind of two use cases that have been very rapidly maturing. One is of course DeFi, right? So there has been a lot of very sophisticated on-chain financial tools that have been created to assist with asset creation, trading, derivatives, whatever, right? I think that's actually getting closer and closer to having real world impact. I think in the form of RWAs, real world assets that are coming on chain. So I think we're getting closer and closer into replacing centralized exchanges, like potentially the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ or things like that. The other one is really decentralized marketplaces. I think the cool word today that people have for is DePIN, right? Decentralized physical infrastructure, but it's really a subset of decentralized marketplaces in general. I think in the beginning, people were very excited about, disintermediating e-commerce platforms like Amazon, but the platform that ended up being really working was something like Helium, right? So actually decentralizing and making use of underutilized resources such as Wi-Fi bandwidth. So now there's also, of course, a drive to onboard a lot of other types of underutilized resources, including GPU cycles. And the GPU thing is very interesting. Back in 2017, one of my classmates, a really good friend of mine, was he's still an executive in NVIDIA. So we were talking, and one of the things I asked him, I said, "Do people actually rent out GPUs, right? Like, is there like a market for underutilized GPUs?" This is back in 2017, and he was like, "Yes, there are a lot of these companies, but they're all not good, right? And they don't get a lot of business. They keep track of a lot of the bigger ones. They said it's not a viable business." So I haven't talked to him in a while. I'm guessing given the rapid rise of AI and the huge amount of demand for GPUs and the fact that the production rate is not able to keep up with demand, perhaps these type of GPU rental is actually a viable business model today. So you saw NVIDIA actually investing very heavily into these GPU sharing platforms as well. So these things kind of come and go. Ideas are never new. These ideas have been around for a very, very long time. And so you see actually the maturation of use cases inside crypto into things like DeFi or decentralized marketplaces. So because these things are maturing, right? Like for us, our layer one vision hadn't really changed because again, the vision that we had in 2017 about building a native integrated EVM on top of BlockDAG, that's sufficiently ahead of its time that even when we released it back in 2023 last year, it was still, I think, very much ahead of its time. So I think on the layer one side, we didn't have to pivot because we picked a really good architecture. And but on the I think on the application side of things, we did have to pivot. I think one of the large pivots that we made was that we started out actually working largely with companies that are not just off-chain, but really offline, right? There are a lot of companies we're working with in asset leasing, in IP licensing, shared mobility, construction. A lot of these companies that were very kind of not even digital, and they weren't even online, and they were running into a lot of problems in their business processes, a lot of friction in their business processes that had to do with small trust gaps, right? So we did a lot of that back in 2018, 2019, and 2020. But then in 2020, of course, DeFi really came into vogue, right? I think things like Uniswap and what was the lending protocol? I can't remember. Really, what?
Huawei, there was lending.
Yeah, there's Aave, yeah. So there are a lot of these things that came out, and as the space starts maturing and congealing, I think converging onto different use cases, the larger community's attention start getting kind of moved away from them, right? So So by the time 2020 came around, it was pretty clear that everyone was obsessed with DeFi, and everyone was really obsessed with things that are crypto native. I would say that decentralized marketplaces or DePIN or whatever today that people are seeing are kind of several degrees removed from DeFi. Even RWAs is like several degrees removed from DeFi. So we're getting closer to the real world. But back then in 2020, I think the focus has always been sort of like, let's go, everyone go all into DeFi, digital assets, forget the physical world, forget the real world. Let's just all look at that. So I think we were building a lot of stuff, and it wasn't resonating with the broader crypto communities, right? People weren't extremely interested in real world stuff. And there was also a lot of obstacles, I think, that made real world applications quite incompatible with the crypto ethos. So the communities are always asking, like, what kind of partnerships do you have? Who are you working with? And we can't ever say anything because all these business partners we work with make us sign NDAs, right? Like, this is the thing that you actually don't realize in business, is that if you're building something meaningful and substantive that the business actually cares about, they don't want you to tell anyone else about it. Right? Why would they? They're going to keep it a secret as long as they can. If you see a business making big marketing announcements about something, there's a very, very good chance it's not real because they don't care. They don't care who knows about it, right? Then who cares, right? Just some narrative they're shooting out into the secondary market to help their stock price or something. Whatever, right? So we were not interested in those type of collaboration. We were interested in substantive collaborations, and that could solve critical problems in their businesses. So we were locked into all these NDAs that prevented us from talking about them. So there's a combination of, people in the crypto communities, their attention was moving away from real world applications, and also the fact that real world applications did not lend themselves well into communicating with the crypto community. So we said, all right, let's build something that still solves real problems, but is a lot more digital in nature, right? So I think that's why we started building Echo. And it was really a process of solving some of the problems of the people around us, right? Like I said, investors were saying they wanted to identify trends earlier. We ourselves were running into scaling problems in terms of community management and being able to get word of mouth out. And, just a lot of these type of problems that we were facing, the community around us were facing, and they're crypto native problems. So we said, how do we solve these problems using a decentralized network or a decentralized platform built on top of Taraxa? So that's why we started building Echo, and it evolved into a decentralized infrastructure for AI agents because we started with a set of very concrete pain points. So that was, I think, sort of a major pivot, if you will, that we really stopped working or paused really working with offline companies and started really working a lot more with online or on-chain partnerships with Echo. I think it was the right call. In the future, though, I think I would still very much like to go back to some of these offline use cases that we're building, because I do think the impact that we can have leveraging decentralization is tremendous with a lot of these businesses. So that's something that's something that we're gonna work on. So yeah, I mean, with that being said, I mean that's a lot of cool things coming up, right, within the Taraxa ecosystem. We already talked about Echo, right? A decentralized infrastructure for AI agents with access to a hugely unique data set of Telegram data, right? We have tons of AI agents applications are already built or coming up, things like Transponder, Hype, Trixie, and more partnerships we're negotiating that's in the pipeline as well. We're laying down the building blocks for a DeFi ecosystem with the bridge and a good number of DeFi projects that are actually in the pipeline that are going to launch on Taraxa as well. So DeFi, I think, is really an enabler, right, for partnerships. For ecosystems. So developers that want to build on top of Taraxa want to know that they're going to get access to liquidity. They're going to be able to launch their projects and fundraise and things like that. So so we have a lot of these things like launchpads and composite incentives that all become industry standard when it comes to the DeFi stack. So all of these things are coming. They're all in the pipeline, and again, the bridge is one of the critical building blocks for all these things. So we're we're happy to be able to introduce all these tools that are necessary for us to have a healthy ecosystem. The layer one infrastructure, of course, we're continuously improving that, and we're making lots of optimizations, right, to the engineering side to make the Taraxa network even faster and more efficient. The 5,000 GPS, 3.7 second true finality, these numbers are conservative. When we released these numbers last year after we published our mainnet, deployed our mainnet, we recognized that there were a lot of low-hanging fruits in terms of engineering that can actually make them much faster. So we're working on those now, and so you guys should be able to see some of that in the near future as well. Longer term, when we designed the bridge, we also made sure that the bridge is a piece of infrastructure that could be used to create subgraphs on top of our Taraxa network in order to turn it into a network of networks. There's definitely a trend. This trend has been going on since, again, 2017. It's very interesting. I mean, the first example of it is probably CryptoKitty, right? The company that went out to build Flow. So as decentralized applications get bigger and bigger, as communities get stronger, they typically want to have more. They typically want to build their own layer ones, and it's very natural that they will want that because they want to have their own ecosystem. They don't necessarily want to share the bandwidth and the throughput with other applications that weren't relevant to them. So we're enabling that, right? So you can actually start to instantiate a subgraph on top of Taraxa. And that's its own kind of sharded layer one network with the security guaranteed by a combination of restake Terra coins plus whatever asset that that ecosystem wants to create on top of that subgraph. So it's a very innovative design. I think this is a longer term goal. You're not going to see that this year. You're probably going to see that next year. That this is something that we're committed to delivering to the larger crypto ecosystem to make sure that any dApp can have kind of like a one-click setup to create their own network. So that's going to be very interesting. And this is something that our community has been asking for a long time. So our website and our overall branding is getting a facelift. We haven't really had an update, right, to all these designs for many years. So we've been working with a very good design firm to make sure that we get a refresh of how we present ourselves to the world. So that's coming up as well. So a lot of exciting things coming up, and AI, DeFi, layer one improvements, entire website redesign. So a lot of things happening this year. We look forward to sharing them with the ecosystem. Yeah.
But if you got cut off.
I'm sorry. I was saying, I'm hoping we can just see the green in the Taraxa ecosystem again after the changes in the UI design.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I guess that will be it. Thank you, Steven. It's been truly enlightening hearing about your journey and the incredible work you're doing with Taraxa. Thank you for taking out some time and coming here, talking to us. It's been a pleasure. It's been a total pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, thank you guys very much for inviting me to share a little bit about Taraxa with your audience. Let's keep working together in the future. So.
Absolutely.
All right.